Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. Have you ever stood in front of the mirror, wondering why the woman who once couldn't get enough of you now seems distant, distracted, even indifferent? It's almost as if you're invisible to her. You show up, you care, you try harder, and yet it seems the harder you try, the less she responds. Maybe you're feeling the slow ache of her pulling away, the silences that used to feel comfortable now filled with tension. And you ask yourself, what happened? Why isn't she seeing my worth anymore? But here's what most men don't realize. It's not about doing more to win her attention. It's about doing one thing, one powerful shift that changes everything. A shift in energy that flips the dynamic and makes her realize exactly what she had and exactly what she stands to lose. The moment you do this, her regret won't just be a passing thought. It will settle deep in her bones. Because women feel regret not when you beg, not when you chase, but when you stop giving your energy where it's no longer cherished, and reclaim it for yourself. So today, we're going to talk about that exact shift, a moment of clarity and power every man needs to experience. You know, I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Picture a man sitting at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched, his eyes staring blankly ahead while the woman he loves scrolls through her phone without a glance in his direction. He's done everything she asked, he's been patient, he's apologized even when he didn't know what exactly he was apologizing for. He's picked up the slack, made dinner reservations, remembered anniversaries, sent her flowers just because, all in hopes of reawakening what seems to have quietly died between them. But here's what's painful. The more he tries to win back her attention, the more invisible he feels. His gestures land like stones in a well, no ripple, no echo, no acknowledgement, and maybe this sounds familiar to you too. Maybe you're this man. Or maybe you've felt, in your own way, that slow erosion of respect, interest, and connection. And so I want to say something important, something perhaps you're ready to hear, even if it stings. It's not about what more you can do for her. It's about how you show up for yourself. The moment a woman starts to take you for granted, it's rarely because you're not doing enough. It's often because you're doing too much for her and not enough for yourself. This is where we begin, because the shift I'm talking about isn't loud or dramatic. It's not about ultimatums or punishments. It's a quiet, inner decision, a reclaiming of dignity, presence, and boundaries. And the beauty of this shift is that the moment you make it, she'll feel it even before you say a word. It's an energetic withdrawal of attention from someone who no longer cherishes it, and that absence speaks volumes. Let's talk about this idea more deeply. Women are exquisitely sensitive to the subtle shifts in emotional energy between themselves and a partner. Sometimes when she senses that you are fully invested no matter how she treats you, that your love is unconditional in a way that disregards your own self-respect, she begins to lose the very thing that made her desire you in the first place, her admiration. Admiration is not a small thing. It is the foundation of romantic respect. A woman might love you, but if she stops admiring you, she will stop cherishing you. And here's where many men find themselves confused. They believe they can win back her admiration through devotion alone. But devotion, when it is offered without self-respect, is not admirable. It can even feel burdensome. So here's where your shift begins. You must stop giving energy to a dynamic that drains you. That doesn't mean abandoning her or punishing her with silence. It means reconnecting with yourself, your purpose, your masculine center. The first thing you must do, and what will immediately make her feel that regret creeping in, is this. You stop making her the center of your emotional universe. Not in bitterness, not in anger, but with calm clarity. You return to your passions. You show yourself that your value does not depend on her validation. You get back to the gym not because she asked you to, but because you respect your own body. You spend time with friends not as an escape, but as nourishment for your soul. You pursue your work, your hobbies, your goals not to prove a point to her, but because you refuse to live a small life waiting for someone else to notice you. And this is not an act or a manipulation. It is a sincere recentering. When she sees that shift, she will feel it, not just in your behavior, but in your presence. Your presence will say, I no longer chase what diminishes me, and that is where regret begins. But why does this work? Why does your withdrawal of energy create that powerful moment where she begins to remember what she admired about you in the first place? It's simple. Desire and respect are rooted in autonomy and strength. When you return to yourself, when you reassert your independence, not in defiance, but in grace, you become once again the man she admired at the beginning. So, think about how you might take that first step. Where have you been giving too much of yourself? In what areas of your life have you neglected your own growth, health, friendships, and ambitions because you've been busy trying to fix what can't be fixed by effort alone? This is a tender but necessary question. You might realize that somewhere along the way you stopped being the man you once were, the man who was full of vitality, curiosity, purpose, and self-respect. And it's not too late. In fact, this is your invitation. Your power lies not in convincing her of your worth, but in reconnecting with it yourself. When you do this, everything changes. You stand differently, you speak differently, you even breathe differently. And this is the shift that will begin to stir something inside her, a feeling she may not even be able to name at first. But it will feel like this: oh, I didn't expect this from him. He's no longer orbiting around me. He's living for himself, and it's in that moment when she sees you reclaim your self-respect that she begins to remember why she fell for you in the first place. But even more importantly, you begin to remember yourself not as a man defined by her attention, but as a man defined by his own standards, purpose, and passions. So as you sit here listening to me now, I want you to reflect gently. Have you been giving too much of your energy to trying to please her, fix her, win her back? And if so, how can you begin to quietly withdraw that energy, not with resentment, but with love for yourself? This isn't about revenge, it's about realignment, because when you realign, she will notice, maybe not immediately. Maybe she will act as though she doesn't care, maybe she'll test your resolve. But inside, her emotional compass will start to point back toward you, not because you demanded it, but because you became magnetic again. This is the first step, and it's a powerful one. When you stop making her the sun in your solar system and instead shine your light inward, you reset the balance. You remind her that your attention is precious, that it must be cherished, not taken for granted, and so from this place of clarity, you begin to build. You build yourself back up, not because she needs to see it, but because you need to feel it. Your sense of strength, autonomy, and grounded presence will speak louder than words. She'll feel the difference, and trust me, she'll regret taking your love for granted the moment you do this. And as you begin this quiet withdrawal, there's something else that unfolds, a beautiful paradox. The very thing you stopped chasing often turns back toward you. But here's the key: it only works if you mean it. If this shift is authentic, if you truly turn your focus back to yourself, not as a tactic, but as a deep and genuine return to self-worth, then her regret becomes inevitable. And let's talk about regret, because it's not a simple emotion. When a woman regrets losing the emotional presence of a man, she isn't just mourning his attention. She is mourning who she was when he admired her, adored her, and made her feel chosen. She begins to notice the absence, not of your presence at her beck and call, but of the version of herself that existed in that dynamic. This is subtle, but incredibly powerful. She begins to feel that gap where your validation used to reside, and it stirs reflection. But none of this works if you stay half in and half out, if you continue to text late at night, "Are you okay?" even when she's giving you cold replies. If you continue to rearrange your schedule for someone who no longer values your time, if you continue to give your warmth while receiving distance in return, no, the shift must be complete, and I don't mean severing the relationship altogether, not necessarily. I mean reclaiming emotional balance by recognizing where your energy is wasted and redirecting it to where it flourishes within your own life. You begin to look at yourself again and ask, what makes me feel alive? Where have I abandoned myself? And something remarkable happens when you do. You begin to glow differently, and this glow is not something you can fake. It's not a curated image on social media or a performance for her to witness. It's subtle but undeniable. You carry yourself with greater ease, you laugh more freely, not because everything is perfect, but because you've stopped outsourcing your self-worth to her approval. This is when she will notice. When you return to your hobbies, when you deepen your friendships, when you go out into the world and make plans that don't revolve around her availability, she will feel it. And not just intellectually, but viscerally, the balance of emotional power begins to reset. And let's sit here for a moment because this is important. A woman's attraction is as much about emotional energy as it is about physical chemistry. When she feels your emotional independence, when she senses that you no longer need her to complete you, but rather choose to be present when it serves both of you, desire can return. But it's a different desire. It's desire reborn in respect. She will feel regret not because you punish her or guilt her, but because you have become someone she must now reach for again. The tables turn gently, almost imperceptibly at first, but they do turn, and this is not manipulation, this is nature. It's how polarity works. So what does this look like in your daily life? It starts in the small decisions. You wake up in the morning, and instead of checking your phone for a text from her, you check in with yourself. How do I want this day to feel? What would nourish me today? You no longer put your joy on hold until she responds the way you wish she would. When you're with her, you're no longer anxiously reading every expression on her face, searching for signs of affection or approval. Instead, you're present in your own body, your own mind. You listen when she speaks, but you don't lose yourself in trying to fix, soothe, or impress her. You remain grounded. You're no longer a man trying to manage her emotions. You're a man living authentically in his own. In the moment, you choose to sit with discomfort rather than escape it. Because she begins to see that you've found something within yourself that she can no longer control, no longer predict. And in that unpredictability lies intrigue, in that self-possession lies attraction. The woman who once thought she could push and pull on your emotions without consequence now begins to feel the absence of that control. She will test you. She might even act colder at first, just to see if you will break, if you will revert to the man she used to know, the one who would do anything for a scrap of her attention. But you won't break. You'll smile gently. You'll remain kind but detached. You will no longer be triggered by her distance, nor will you chase it. And here's where your freedom truly begins, because you're no longer reacting, you're simply being. This is the essence of masculine energy that so many men lose when they fall into emotional overinvestment. Masculine energy is calm, directed, purpose-driven. It's not chaotic or needy or chasing. It invites respect through presence and strength, not through pleading. When you reclaim this energy, she will feel it like a shift in the room when you walk in, and whether she says it or not, she will miss it. She will begin to wonder, why is he so centered? Why is he so calm? Why doesn't he react the way he used to? And beneath all those questions is one deeper, more vulnerable question she won't speak aloud. Is he slipping away from me? And that's when regret truly begins, not just a passing thought, but an ache. She realizes she is no longer the axis of your world. And suddenly she begins to see you again, not as the man who was chasing, but as the man who is leading his own life. And all of this happens without you saying a single word to demand respect or attention. You show it through your being, through your choices, through your energy. The shift you make today isn't external, it's internal, but its impact is undeniable. So as we continue this journey together, I want you to reflect quietly again. What would it look like if you gave your energy only where it is reciprocated? How would your life expand if you stopped chasing approval and began nurturing your own passions, friendships, and purpose? Because here's what I want you to remember. Women are not attracted to men who abandon themselves for love. They are attracted to men who are deeply in love with their own lives, and who invite others into that life from a place of fullness, not need. When you live like that, when you reclaim your emotional independence and stop making her the center of your universe, she will regret taking you for granted. She will see you not as the man begging for scraps of affection, but as the man whose affection must be earned again. And you will feel that difference in yourself first before she ever says a word or makes a move. You'll feel lighter, freer, more centered. You'll feel proud not of winning her back, but of rediscovering yourself. And as you rediscover yourself, you'll begin to notice something unexpected. Not only will she begin to feel the shift in you, but you too will feel a shift in how you experience her presence. The man you become when you stop outsourcing yourself, worth to her gaze, is a man who no longer tolerates disrespect, not because he's angry, but because he's finally whole. Suddenly, those behaviors that once kept you anxious, her silence, her indifference, her mixed signals, no longer rattle you the way they did before. You'll still notice them, of course, but where once you would have rushed to close the gap, desperate to fix whatever was broken, you now simply observe. And this observing comes from a deeper place of self-possession, a calm confidence that tells you, I am okay with or without this woman's approval. And that's precisely what she begins to feel too. She feels your centeredness, your emotional stability, and it becomes undeniable. She senses that her moods, her withdrawal, her tests no longer dictate your emotional climate, and in that space of freedom, for you and for her, desire can return. You see, there is something paradoxical about love. It often thrives not in proximity, but in space. When you give a woman too much of your emotional energy, when you smother her with attention, she can't feel desire because desire needs distance. It needs a little mystery, a little uncertainty, a little of the unknown. And what you're doing now, by shifting your focus back to yourself, is creating that space without needing to announce it, without drama. And here's something else to understand. Regret is often born in the moments when someone realizes they no longer hold emotional power over you. That moment when they realize they cannot predict your next move, that you're no longer circling around their moods, that you've returned to your own rhythm, your own life. This is when their feelings begin to change. She might reach out more often. She might test your availability. She might even become warmer, trying to pull you back into the familiar dynamic where she felt safe being pursued and adored without having to reciprocate equally. But here's the test for you. Can you remain calm, steady, clear? Can you continue walking your own path even as she begins to reach back for you? Because this is where many men falter. They see her regret as a cue to resume the old patterns. The very moment she starts to notice your distance, you may feel tempted to rush back in, to reassure her, to give her everything she's now beginning to ask for. But remember this, the goal is not to make her regret losing you so that you can jump back into her arms at any cost. The goal is for you to return to yourself so fully, so beautifully, that you only allow relationships into your life that meet you with mutual respect, desire, and presence. So as she begins to notice and perhaps even express that regret, whether in small gestures, nostalgic messages, or sudden invitations, you must stay grounded. You receive her energy, but you don't lose yourself in it. You respond thoughtfully, but you don't rearrange your entire day for her. You remain kind, but you are no longer overly eager. Your energy stays with you first and foremost. And this is where her regret transforms into longing. She no longer just misses your attention. She begins to miss the man you've become. The man who is independent, vibrant, passionate, and fully alive in his own life. The man who is no longer trying to fix her emotions, but who is simply being, present, centered, and unattached to outcome. You see, this unattached state is incredibly powerful. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care from a place of abundance, not scarcity. You care because you want to, not because you need to. And when you reach that place, you attract differently. Not just her, but people in general. You become magnetic. Your energy feels expansive, not needy. You embody masculine sovereignty. And there's something subtle yet profound about this. It's not just her perception of you that changes, it's your perception of yourself. You start to see yourself as whole, complete, and worthy, regardless of her reactions or anyone else's. You begin to realize that your emotional peace is yours to protect, and you no longer surrender it to someone who may not know how to cherish it. So imagine this scenario. She texts you out of nowhere after days of silence, saying she misses you. Before, this would have sent your heart racing. You would have dropped everything just to engage, just to feel close again. But now you smile gently. You respond when it feels right for you, not immediately, not anxiously, but with calm presence. Maybe you even decide that you want to take more time before engaging because you're enjoying a night out with friends or you're immersed in a hobby that lights you up. That difference is everything because it signals, silently but unmistakably, that you're no longer holding your breath for her affection. You are breathing fully, deeply in your own rhythm. This is when her regret deepens. This is when she begins to look at you differently, not as a man who is waiting, but as a man who is living. And that is deeply attractive because it means you're not trying to pull her back. You're inviting her gently into your world. If she's ready to meet you there, but here's the beautiful thing, by this point you may find that her regret no longer has the same hold on you. You might realize that you're no longer interested in going back to that dynamic, not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown it. You've stepped into a new version of yourself, one that refuses to settle for emotional crumbs, one that honors your own standards and desires. And this is what I want you to sit with. She may regret losing your attention, but you may no longer want to give it. You may realize that your value is not in being chosen by her, but in choosing yourself first. So as you listen to this, ask yourself quietly, what would it look like to live from this place every day? How would you show up differently in your relationships, in your work, in your life, if you were no longer waiting for her regret as validation? Because the deepest freedom is not making someone regret losing you. It's realizing you no longer need their regret to feel worthy. The moment you embody that truth, you transcend the dynamic entirely, and you become the man you were always meant to be, whole, grounded, loving, and free. And as you live this truth day by day, something gentle but profound begins to happen inside you. The focus shifts entirely. What started as a quiet reclaiming of dignity becomes a new way of being, a way where your attention, time, and love are no longer scattered or given out of fear of loss, but offered from a deep well of presence and self-respect. You wake up in the morning and the air feels different. You don't reach for your phone to check if she's thinking of you, if she's changed her mind, if her regret has ripened into reconciliation. Instead, you notice yourself again, the way your chest rises and falls with breath, the subtle joy of your own thoughts, the way your body feels after a good night's sleep or a workout that challenged you. You begin to take care of yourself not as a means to an end, but as an act of devotion to the life you want to live. And this is where you begin to feel your own emotional sovereignty fully. Emotional sovereignty means you stop measuring your value by how much attention she gives you. You stop chasing. You stop waiting. You stop interpreting every text or silence as a sign of your worth. You're no longer caught in the endless loop of self, questioning, wondering what you did wrong, what you could say to make her come back, what gesture might make her soften. Because the truth is, no gesture will ever matter until you embody this deeper truth, that your love is valuable because it's yours to give, not hers to grant. This is where she begins to feel something different too. The absence of your pursuit feels like a void at first, a space where your energy once was. But as that absence lingers, it begins to speak to her in ways your words never could. It tells her that you are no longer the man who is easily available, easily swayed, easily manipulated by her moods. You are now the man who chooses carefully, who gives deliberately, who honors himself first. And this is powerful, because in every relationship there is a subtle but crucial balance of energy. When you overinvest emotionally, when you give too much and receive too little, the balance tips in a way that makes you less attractive, not just to her, but even to yourself. But when you reclaim that balance, when you give from fullness rather than emptiness, everything changes. You might notice her behaving differently now. Maybe she reaches out more often. Maybe she's suddenly interested in your life again. Maybe she asks you how you're doing, where you've been, why you're so quiet these days. And in the past, this would have been all you needed, a sign that she cares, an invitation back into her emotional world. But this time, you're different. You're not cold or distant, but you are discerning. You're no longer giving her access to your emotions just because she knocks on the door. You're not playing hard to get, you are hard to get, because your energy is precious and you know it now. You're moving through life with ease, with grace. You're living your passions, reconnecting with your friends, showing up for yourself in ways you may have neglected for too long. You're rediscovering your humor, your confidence, your spark, and it's radiating out of you in ways she cannot ignore. And that regret she feels, it deepens, not into bitterness or jealousy, but into longing. She begins to long for the man you've become, centered, confident, self-respecting. The man who is no longer leaning in with neediness, but standing tall with self-worth, the man who is not seeking approval, but offering presence. But here's the paradox. By the time her longing becomes clear, you may find yourself in a new place entirely. You may realize that you no longer need her attention to feel whole, and this is where the true freedom lies. You see, this whole journey was never about making her regret losing you. That was only the starting point, a catalyst for your growth. The real journey is about becoming a man who honors himself so deeply that regret, hers or anyone else's, becomes irrelevant to your sense of peace and purpose. And it's from this place that you can choose wisely. You can choose whether to re-engage with her, whether to rebuild the relationship, or whether to walk away completely, not from a place of pain or ego, but from a place of clarity. Because now you understand something most people never learn. Love must be mutual, and respect must be reciprocal. You are no longer interested in chasing or convincing. You're interested in connection that feels balanced, easy, natural, and that starts with the connection you have with yourself. So when she comes back, and you will feel the difference in yourself before anything else. The difference is this: you are no longer a man trying to prove his worth. You are a man living his worth, and whether she fits into that life again is not a question of regret, it's a question of alignment. You may feel compassion for her struggle, you may feel warmth for the memories you shared, but you won't feel the same desperate pull to make her see you, because now you see you. And when you see yourself clearly, the world around you rearranges itself accordingly. People respect you differently. Opportunities flow more easily. Even casual conversations feel lighter, easier because you are no longer carrying the heavy burden of seeking validation where it isn't freely given. And this freedom allows you to love differently too. You love from fullness, not emptiness. You give without needing something in return. And in this way you become not just attractive but magnetic. So as you continue to walk this path, remember, the regret she feels is hers to process. It's not your responsibility to manage it, heal it, or fix it. Your responsibility is to live fully, authentically, joyfully, whether she notices or not. And this is where your journey becomes your own. The moment you stop waiting for her to see your worth and start living as if you already know it, you become untouchable. Not in a hardened, distant way, but in a grounded, centered, graceful way. So as you sit with these reflections, ask yourself, where have I been giving too much? Where have I been waiting for permission to feel worthy? And how can I reclaim my time, my energy, my heart? Not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of self-love. Because in the end, this is what makes her regret losing you. Not your withdrawal, not your coldness, not your silence, but your joy. Your joy is the most powerful message you can send, it says. I am complete with or without you, and that is a truth that resonates far beyond words. And as you embrace this joy, this quiet, everyday joy that no longer depends on her presence, something beautiful and almost surprising happens inside you. You begin to notice how much space opens up when you stop preoccupying yourself with what she thinks, what she feels, how she might be interpreting your silence or your choices. That mental chatter that once filled your mind starts to fade, and in its place is peace. You feel it when you walk down the street, no longer needing to look at your phone every few minutes, waiting for that message or call. You feel it when you sit with friends and realize you're fully present, laughing without that ache in your chest, without wondering what she's doing or if she's thinking of you. You feel it when you wake up in the morning and your first thought is not about her mood or her absence, but about your own day, your own dreams. This is liberation, not freedom from love itself, but freedom from attachment to how it must look, how it must feel, how it must unfold. And this freedom allows you to relate to her or anyone else, not from a place of grasping or needing, but from a place of generosity. And it's this version of you, the man who is at peace, who has reclaimed his attention, who is living for himself, that she will feel most deeply. Because you're no longer driven by her approval, you're driven by your own alignment, and here's where we must be honest. When you reach this point, you might not even want her back anymore. Not because you don't care, but because you see clearly now the places where you compromised yourself, the ways you twisted yourself to fit into a mold that was never truly yours. You begin to see that much of what you were missing wasn't actually her. It was your own self-respect, your own passion, your own presence. And maybe this is the deepest regret she'll feel, not just that she lost you, but that she lost access to the version of you who was willing to sacrifice so much for her attention. Because now that man is gone, and in his place stands a man who requires respect, who demands emotional reciprocity, not with anger, but with clarity. When you communicate now, your tone has shifted. There's no resentment, no pleading, no subtext. Your words are simple, direct, and calm. You no longer try to impress or charm your way back into her life. You're not performing, you're just being. And this is disarming. It creates a new dynamic one, where she must now work to re-earn your attention, where she must now show up fully if she wants to stand beside you. And this dynamic is not about power games. It's about balance, about restoring the equilibrium that was lost when you gave too much and she gave too little. You begin to see that respect is the foundation of all attraction. When she respects you, desire can flourish again. When she senses your independence, your calm detachment, your emotional self-reliance, it reignites something in her, something that may have long been dormant. And yet, even as this happens, you are not swayed. You remain grounded. You've tasted what it feels like to live without waiting for her. And that taste has made you stronger, wiser, more selective. So when she reaches out, whether with words, gestures, or a longing look, You receive it with grace, you listen. But you also listen to yourself. You no longer rush to close the gap. You let things unfold naturally. You ask yourself, does this serve my well-being? Does this feel respectful, mutual, nourishing? And this is the question that keeps you rooted in your power. Because regret, as sweet as it may sound when you imagined it before, is no longer your compass. Your compass is alignment, peace, authenticity. You become a man who lives with intention, choosing where to invest his time, energy, and heart based on whether those investments honor his values and his self-worth. And this makes you attractive not only to her, but to everyone around you. Your friends notice the shift. Your colleagues feel your presence differently. Even strangers sense it, because there is nothing more compelling than a person who is deeply comfortable in his own skin. This is the essence of true masculinity, a calm, quiet confidence that doesn't need to be proven, that doesn't seek validation, that simply is. And from this place, you are free not because you've walked away from love, but because you're no longer enslaved by the need to be loved at any cost. And this is where your story takes on a new dimension. You may choose to reconnect with her, but on different terms. Or you may choose to walk away entirely, realizing that her regret, while real, doesn't obligate you to return. Either way, you win because the man you have become through this process is far more important than the relationship you once chased. You see, the real transformation was never about her noticing your worth. It was about you rediscovering your worth and living from it every single day. So as you move forward, notice how different your energy feels when you no longer rush, when you no longer chase, when you no longer explain or justify your presence. You simply show up, whole, centered, alive, and this presence will change the way she sees you forever. Because she'll feel it, not in your words, but in your silence, in your absence, in your peaceful distance. She'll realize what she lost, not because you told her, but because you stopped needing her to see it. And in that space you will find peace, a peace that no amount of regret, longing, or apology can disrupt. Because now, finally, you understand that the most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself. And so, as you walk forward, no longer burdened by the need for her attention or the ache of her distance, you begin to experience something deeper than relief. You begin to experience freedom, not the kind of freedom that feels like running away, but the kind that feels like coming home. Coming home to yourself, you realize that for far too long you confused her validation with your value. You believed that if she noticed you again, if she regretted pulling away, then you would feel whole. But now you see clearly, you were whole all along, you just forgot, and here's what's so beautiful about this realization. It changes how you relate to every relationship going forward. You stop asking, what can I do to make her see me? And you start asking, am I seeing myself fully? You stop wondering, how can I keep her from leaving? And you start wondering, am I staying true to myself? This shift is subtle but profound, because from this place love becomes a choice, not a need. You love not because you are empty, but because you are overflowing. You invite people into your life not to fill a void, but to share the abundance that is already there. You relate to women differently, not as someone desperate for their affection, but as someone curious about whether they are capable of meeting you in this place of mutual respect, reciprocity, and desire. And she, this woman who once took your attention for granted, she will feel that. Whether she says it or not, she will feel it. She will feel your absence like a quiet echo in the room. She will remember the version of you who bent, who chased, who tried so hard to win her back, and she will see that man no longer exists. And that regret she feels, it will deepen, but this time it won't move you, not because you're heartless, but because you're finally whole-hearted. You understand now that the game you were playing was never truly about winning her back. It was about remembering yourself. And as you stand here now listening to this, I want you to know something. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. The moment you live as though you know your value, the world around you rearranges itself. Opportunities appear. People respect you differently. Women are drawn to you, not because you're chasing them, but because you're rooted, grounded, living. This is the gift of the work you've done, and as you continue to walk this path, you'll notice that your standards have changed. What once kept you up at night wondering why she was cold, distant, uninterested, will seem so small compared to the life you are now building. And maybe she will come back. Maybe she will realize what she lost. Maybe she will try to re-enter your life with apologies, with softness, with longing. And you will listen, but you will listen from a different place now, a place where you no longer feel the urgency to save what was lost, because you're too busy living what is true. And if you do choose to let her back in, it will be on new terms defined by mutual respect, by reciprocity, by shared presence. No more one-sided devotion, no more abandoning yourself to keep her happy, no more sacrificing your peace just to feel close. Or maybe you will decide that her regret has no bearing on your path anymore, that you've outgrown the dynamic entirely, that you are ready for a love that meets you fully as you are where you are. Either way, you win. Because the man you have become through this process is the man who can love without losing himself, the man who can care without clinging, the man who can give without emptying, and that is the man who is truly free. So as we close this conversation today, I want you to remember this one simple truth: her regret is not your reward. Your reward is this peace, this clarity, this sovereignty you have reclaimed. Your reward is waking up in the morning without needing to chase anyone for their attention. Your reward is feeling fully alive right now, right here as you are. When you live from this place, everything else, whether she comes back, whether she reaches out, whether she regrets what she lost, becomes secondary. You no longer need her regret as proof of your worth. You know it now, you feel it now, you embody it now. And that is what changes everything. So to every man listening today, let this be your reminder: you are not here to beg for love. You are not here to chase approval. You are here to stand fully in your own light, to live a life that feels true, joyful, and free, whether anyone notices or not. And from that place of fullness, you invite love. You don't seek it, you invite it. And when love comes, whether from her or someone new, you will meet it as a whole man, not a man desperate to be completed. That is your power, that is your freedom, and that is the energy that will make her regret taking you for granted, even as you smile gently, live your life fully, and continue forward with grace. Thank you for being here with me today, in this beautiful space we share at the Intimacy Lab. I invite you to reflect on what we've explored together, not just as ideas, but as a way of living, a way of loving, a way of being. If this conversation has resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Share your story. Let this be a community where we all learn to live and love more consciously, more courageously. And if you've found value here, remember to like this video and subscribe to the Intimacy Lab. There are so many more conversations to come, conversations about connection, self-respect, intimacy, and emotional truth. Until next time, take care of yourself first. Love begins there.